Your jacket has been on that same hook by the door for 11 years. It's the one with the fraying cuff on the left side. You keep meaning to replace it, and you never do. You're standing at a gas station pump on a Tuesday morning. The pump screen says $31.40. You watch the numbers tick. Your phone buzzes in your pocket. You pull it out. It's the brokerage app. An account balance notification. The number says $290,000. You put the phone back in your pocket. The pump finishes. You get in the car. The jacket is still fraying. The car is the same car. And nobody in that gas station parking lot would guess that the person pumping $31.40 in regular unleaded just checked a $290,000 brokerage account. That gap, between what your life looks like and what it actually is not an accident. It is the result of a specific, boring, quiet set of decisions made over 18 years that nobody saw. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what your life looks like when you choose to build wealth in silence, the invisible discipline in the early years, the social friction with people who think you're just being cheap, the compounding that runs in the background for a decade while your life appears completely ordinary, and then the specific, undramatic moment when the freedom arrives and nobody claps. This is the path that works. It just doesn't make good content. 7 beats. From the moment the decision gets made, not the motivation video decision, the quiet Tuesday morning decision, all the way to the day the freedom lands without announcement. One path makes a lot of noise, the other one builds the account. Here is what happens when nobody notices. The loud path starts with a moment of genuine motivation. You watch a video, read something, feel the pressure of turning 26 and not having much saved. So you announce it. You tell your roommate you're getting serious about money. You post about the new budget. You buy the finance book and put it on your desk where people can see it. This is real. The motivation is real. But the announcement is the leak. Here is what actually happens when you announce a financial goal before it has any traction. The social acknowledgement your brain needed to feel like it was making progress comes immediately from the announcement itself. And that small hit of recognition partially satisfies the motivation. The goal loses urgency because you already told people about it. You've spent the social capital before you did the work. The silent path doesn't start with a video. It starts with a Tuesday morning in March where you open your banking app, look at $1,847 in checking, look at $0 in savings, look at the $347 gap between your income and what you're spending, and make a decision in about 4 minutes without telling anybody. You open a brokerage account, you set up a $347 automatic transfer, you close the app, you go to work. No one knows you did that, and that is exactly why it works. When you don't tell anyone, you remove the social acknowledgement loop entirely. The only way to get any psychological payoff from the goal now is to actually reach it. The discomfort of watching that $347 leave your account every month and having no audience to perform for, that discomfort becomes the training. You learn to want the account balance more than you want the reaction. You don't know yet that by month 12, that $347 a month will have grown to just over $4,300. The number will still feel embarrassingly small. You will keep going anyway. Here's what nobody tells you about the first year. It feels like nothing is happening, and that feeling is the whole point. Month 1. The $347 transfer goes out. Nothing visible has changed. Your apartment looks the same. Your car is the same. Your weekend looks the same. The account says $347. Month 3. The transfer goes out again. You have not told anyone. The account says roughly $1,050. The number is too small to matter to anyone else, so you don't mention it. You keep going. Month 8. You have roughly $2,850 invested. You read something about index funds, funds that track the entire market rather than picking individual stocks. And you shift your automatic purchase into a broad market index fund. You don't tell anyone. This is the kind of decision that sounds insane to say out loud to most people in your life. The loud path at month 8 looks different. The person who announced their goal in month 1 has maybe $400 in a savings account and a credit card they touched in month 4 during a slow week. They bought a $67 online course in month 6 and completed about 40% of it. The announcement gave them a first chapter, but not a second. Silence doesn't have a first chapter. It just has the work. Here is a separate illustration. Not threes numbers, just the math on its own, of what consistent, quiet investing looks like over time. Someone starts at $200 per month at age 24, flat, no annual increase, and runs that for 30 years in a broad index fund averaging 8% annually. They end up at approximately $298,000. Not from a windfall, not from a raise, from $200 a month, flat, quietly, invisibly, compounding over 30 years. The person on the loud path who burned through their motivation in the announcement and never built the automatic habit ends up with something closer to $56,000, assuming they eventually restart and stay inconsistent. The difference isn't talent. It's the quiet compounding of a decision nobody witnessed. That gap, $242,000, is built entirely in silence, one invisible month at a time. But at month 8, you don't feel the $242,000 gap that illustration shows. You feel $2,850 in an index fund and a Tuesday that looks exactly like the one before it. The first year of building wealth in silence feels like nothing. That is not a bug in the process. That is the process. The quiet is not humility, and it is not a strategy for looking unbothered. In year 2, it starts to cost something. Your friends, good people, people you actually like, start to notice patterns. You say no to the $412 tab at the bar on Saturday. You drive a car that is objectively not impressive. You don't go on the group trip to Cancun that costs $1,800 all in. $680 in flights, $820 split on the hotel, $300 in spending money you ran the numbers on and decided you'd rather not spend. Because that $1,800 is more than 5 months of your investment contribution, and you'd rather have it working. They don't say you're cheap. They say you're always busy or being weird about money lately. One of them, kindly, genuinely, tells you that you're young and you should enjoy it. And you nod, because explaining what you're doing would require a 20-minute conversation that would sound either preachy or paranoid or both. For the first person in the family building this, and this is the specific texture that most money content misses, the silence isn't just a strategy. It's a necessity. You can't stand at a dinner table with your cousins and say you're auto-investing $347 a month. They're trying to make rent. Flexing on people who have less than you is not something you're willing to do, which means you stay quiet, not because it's a calculated wealth tactic, but because you're not willing to be that person. And so you carry the decision internally. The account grows. Your social life looks like nothing changed. People occasionally make jokes about your car, which is fine. The loud path at year 2 looks like this. The person who announced the goal has a slightly better car than you. They went on the Cancun trip and have good photos. They were generous at the bar. From the outside, they look like they're doing better. From the inside, they have $4,300 saved and $6,200 in credit card debt that they're managing, but not eliminating. Subtract one from the other, and their actual net position is negative $1,900. You have $9,000 invested. Nobody can see that. The quiet cost in year 2 is social. The quiet dividend is real. Here is the moment most people give the money back, and the one move that prevents it. Year 4. You got a raise. The loud path handles a raise the way most people handle a raise. The income goes up, and then, over a period of about 6 months, the expenses follow it up. A slightly nicer apartment, call it $380 more per month because you can afford it now. Eating out more, $190 a month because it's Tuesday and you earned it. The streaming services you kept meaning to cancel get kept. Another $45. The car payment bumps, $220 more. None of these upgrades are unreasonable. Each one, individually, is fine. But add them up, $380 plus $190 plus $45 plus $220 is $835 a month in new spend on a $640 net raise. The raise has been fully absorbed before it clears 3 months. The money went looking for somewhere to go, and a lifestyle was right there waiting. You handle it differently. You set up a second automatic transfer. The moment the paycheck lands, before you see the new money clearly enough to spend it. The raise is $640 a month net. You send $400 of it directly to the investment account the week the raise kicks in. Your auto-invest contribution goes from $347 to $747 a month. The other $240 does go into your spending. You're not suffering, you're not punishing yourself. But the $400 that could have silently lifted your lifestyle instead goes silently to the account. This is the move that most finance content calls paying yourself first. The idea that you automate the savings before the money sits in your checking account long enough to become visible and spendable. It works because you don't experience the $400 as a loss. You never had it. It moved before you could see it. At year 4, your investment account is at nearly $19,500. Your lifestyle looks almost identical to year 1. You drive the same car, same apartment, same square footage, a few nicer items in the kitchen that you bought secondhand. If your friends had to guess your net worth, they would probably say something in the $6,000 to $10,000 range. They would be off by nearly $10,000. The absence of lifestyle inflation is not deprivation. It's the gap between what you could spend and what you do spend. And that gap, compounding, is the engine. Quick thing before we keep going. If this is landing, subscribe. It's the easiest way to make sure the next one reaches you. Okay, back to it. This is the part of the story that no one can see from the outside, and the part that changes everything. Year 7. At some point in year 7, the account crosses $55,000. Nothing about your life looks different. The car still isn't impressive. You don't post about it. The number just sits there, growing quietly, adding to itself, year after year. Year 10. The account is at $100,000. There is no ceremony. No notification, except the one you see when you happen to open the app on a Sunday afternoon. And here is what the math looks like from the inside. Over 10 years, you've contributed roughly $70,000 in total. $347 a month for 4 years, then $747 a month for 6 more. The account says $100,000. The other $30,000 came from nowhere you can point to. It's just 8 years of 8%. Quietly. Your money making money on itself, invisibly. The loud path at year 10 looks like this. The person who never built the automatic habit has started and stopped twice. They have a good chunk in a 401k, maybe $19,000, because their employer enrolled them by default and they never opted out. But they have no taxable investment account. Their take-home income is fully consumed by a lifestyle that has inflated with each raise. When the market has a good year, it doesn't change their life. They don't feel it. You feel the accumulation. You don't talk about it. There's nobody in your immediate life who would know what to do with the information. But you feel it on the Sunday when you open the app, and the account says $100,000, and you know exactly how it got there. Every decision. From the Tuesday morning, 4 minutes in the banking app, forward. You are 34. You have not told anyone outside of maybe one trusted person what you have saved. And in 2 years, something in the math is going to change. It won't feel like anything when it does. It will just be another Tuesday. The money is quiet. You are quiet about the money. And the compounding is indifferent to any of it. It just runs. Year 12 is when the math tips. And when the account starts doing something, the loud path never does. The account is at $137,000. And now something changes in the math that doesn't change in how anything looks. For the first time, the portfolio's own growth in a single calendar year is larger than your annual contributions. Compound interest is your money making money on itself. You put in $8,964 that year in contributions. The market returns, 8% on a $137,000 base, added roughly $10,960. Your money earned more than you added. The number didn't change how Tuesday felt. The architecture did. This is the inflection point no one can see from outside your life. The $10,960 doesn't show up in your wardrobe or your apartment. It just adds to the account, which grows, which adds to the next year's base. The flywheel is running, invisible. You are 36. You have not told your coworkers this. You have not told your parents all of it. They know you're careful with money, but the number itself isn't something you're going to explain. You just show up to work on Tuesday. You do good work. You leave when it's done. At year 15, the account crosses $204,000. The 4% rule: if you withdraw 4% of your balance annually, Historical data suggests the portfolio can sustain itself over a 30-plus year period. At $204,000 means roughly $680 a month in passive income equivalent. You are 39. Two things happen quietly that year. First, you stop taking the projects at work that you don't believe in because you can now afford to. Not retire, but choose. You say no to a lateral move that would have paid slightly more but required 60-hour weeks. That month, the car needs $2,200 in repairs. You pay it the same week. You don't lose sleep. Second, you realize the freedom didn't arrive as an event. There was no day. Nobody threw you a party. The number just crossed a threshold, somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000, where the anxiety that used to live behind every financial decision quietly left. The checking every morning habit stopped. The math on every purchase stopped. The slow month dread stopped. The loud path at year 15 looks like this. Your peer from year 1 has $87,000 in retirement accounts, $12,000 in credit card debt, a car payment, and a mortgage on a house that's slightly too large for what they actually needed. They are not in bad shape, but they are one bad year from stress. You are not. The freedom that arrives quietly doesn't look like freedom to anyone watching. It looks like you just kept your same modest apartment a little longer than made sense. Year 18. The account is at $290,000. You are 42. At $290,000, the 4% withdrawal rate covers about $967 per month, which is close to your average monthly base expenses after years of not inflating your lifestyle. You are approaching financial independence, the point where your investments can cover your cost of living. You haven't left your job yet. You like it enough. But you could. This is the internal payoff nobody sees. Not the number. Numbers are easy to explain. The payoff is the quiet. The fact that when something expensive and unexpected happens, a health issue, a family member who needs help, a job that becomes untenable, you don't feel the floor drop out. You feel the weight of it, but not the way you felt that $1,847 checking balance at 24. You feel it from solid ground. There will be people who drift. Not because you did anything wrong, because the quiet changed the geometry of certain relationships. A friendship that used to be organized around the same financial anxiety gradually stops having that shared texture. You are no longer anxious the same way, and some people read that as distance. You can't correct the impression without explaining the number, and explaining the number is not something you're going to do. Year 18. Your actual net worth, counting the invested assets, puts you in roughly the top 15% of people your age. Nobody around you knows that. That is still true. The quiet cost was never the $412 bar tab or the Cancun trip you skipped. The quiet cost was that you built something real and had nobody to tell. And here is the thing about building wealth in silence that most of the content about stealth wealth misses. It was never a strategy for looking rich. The people who matter know you're fine. Your parents sleep better. Your partner, if you have one, knows the number. The inner circle doesn't need a performance. They needed someone who would still be there in year 18 with the same calm they had in year 1. For the first person in the family doing this, and I want to say this directly, the silence was never because you had something to hide. It was because you understood something about the social math of your particular life that required you to move without an audience. You built this on your own, and you built it quietly, and it worked. In year 18 with $290,000 in the account, the main feeling is not pride, it's just steadiness. You've been steady for a long time. You just finally have the number to match it. The two paths don't look different for a long time. Years 1 through 4, you're both just people in your 20s figuring it out. The person on the loud path isn't failing. They're living. They're just spending the exact money they earn, which is what most of the world does. The divergence is almost entirely invisible until it isn't. Year 12, when one of you has $137,000 and one has $19,000 in a 401k they never touch. Year 18, when one of you can absorb any crisis from solid ground and one is 2 bad months from credit card debt. The decision to build in silence doesn't require a personality overhaul. You don't have to stop going to dinner with your friends or pretend you don't enjoy good things. You just automate the wealth building piece before the lifestyle has a chance to absorb the money, and then you let time and compound interest, your money earning money on its own, invisibly, do the rest. Silence is not what you chose because you were disciplined. It is what you chose because the alternative, the announcement, the performance, the audience, would have consumed the energy the account needed to grow. The quiet was not humility. The quiet was structure. Nobody noticed. That was the point. If you want the silent wealth checklist, the exact setup that makes the auto-invest habit stick, the raise rule, and the 4 benchmarks to track when nobody else is watching, the link's in the description. It's free. And if you want to see what this looks like at every level of your net worth, that video is right here. And before you go, if this helped, like it and subscribe so the next one finds you.